Jesus, I am overjoyed
Yay.
to see you face to face. There's been a lot of discussions about you all over the place. And now, turning water into wine, raising from the dead, and now I hear you're God. Well, at least that's what you said. I'm trying to remember King Herod's song from memory from Godspell.
From Godspell.
Because it turns out that's a very popular song from that musical.
I'm sure it is.
Because I've seen like 8 different renditions of it since I started watching it.
Okay.
And there's even a Josh Gad version of it, which I actually think is pretty perfectly cast. You know, because Josh Gad is like jovial and big gay guy. Like, you know, he's just a big silly fella. You know,
Right.
he's a good choice for.
He's a good choice for
for
Herod.
that. And I even saw Alice Cooper do a variation of King Herod for some
funny.
special they did on like TV or something.
Oh my God.
I couldn't remember past that little opening part though, and even that I screwed up a lot.
Well, you know,
It's
you have to watch it more times.
It's basically the song is just King Herod being like, you know, show me a miracle and prove you're Jesus, or I don't believe you, and I feel like you're a danger to me politically.
Right. This is from Godspell, by the way. If we
No,
didn't say
actually, that's not from Godspell. That's from Jesus Christ
that.
Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah,
Oh.
I
always
screwed
get
up
those
when I
mixed
said
up.
Godspell.
Okay.
But that's another one I haven't seen that I want to see because I've seen some clips of it that look really awesome.
Yeah.
Like not just the King Herod clip, but there's the guy that plays Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, the movie, is like a really powerful, soulful singer. And I saw some pieces he performed. I saw like his main like, you know, he has like this piece where he's singing about like, oh Jesus, you're getting too full of yourself. Like you're thinking, you know, every time you do something now, everybody's like treating it like it's a miracle, like you're God, and we gotta go back to our grassroots and stuff. And it's a really impressive, powerful performance. I can't remember the name of the song, but if you just look up like Jesus Christ Superstar Judas, I'm sure it'll come up.
Okay.
Because it's like you see this guy and he's like very sweaty and intense.
I'm picturing the guy from The Office. You know, the guy who plays the boss, you know.
Steve Carell.
No. Not sorry, not The Office. The guy who's in the new Spider-Man movie, who plays the leader of the organization.
Yeah, the guy that plays Milchek
Yes.
in Severance.
Severance.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
thank
That
you.
actor is fabulous, and actually, as far as like intensity goes, he's not that far off from the guy that plays Judas.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
But I mean, you know, are you just comparing them because they're both black actors?
No, because
are
they
you
have
racist?
That's right. That's right. I'm racist.
No, I agree. They're
just think
both
have an
iconic
intensity.
performances.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing I wanted to mention about. So this is part 2 of a first part episode. If you want to see the first part, I'll include the link to it somewhere. Like I said, I don't know how social media works. So
yeah, neither of us.
no, I'm just kidding. I'll include the link somewhere, and if not in like the description, I'll put it in like a little window above our heads or something. But this is part 2 of our return to the Greatshell Podcast.
That's right.
Originally, this podcast was titled Special Features, and I had it running on a different channel. And you can still look for Greatshell Special Features and find the older episodes if you want to watch them. But
I'm not sure this name change is a good idea at all, but I will.
why isn't it a good? Why isn't it a good
I just
idea?
don't want people to lose track of
No,
the
we're
original.
doing a rebranding.
Okay.
We're gonna make ourselves more noticeable, not less.
Okay. All
You know,
right.
we're creating a more unique name, a more unique vision. You know, I have a little studio set up now for us to perform in. So like I feel like it's only good things.
Okay.
You know, and besides, we're still posting on the same account, so the people that get those videos are still going to get the same.
They're still going to
videos.
get the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But I'm
about-
just saying, if you want to see the older episodes of the podcast, it's called Special Features, but you have to search for it with the name Greatshell.
Right.
But moving forward, we're hoping that just searching for like this title of the show the way it is now, it'll be
get you
easier to
there.
find.
So it's going to be Greatshell Godspell.
It's not going to be that.
Oh, okay.
We're not going to exclusively be a Godspell podcast. As much as I'm talking about these Jesus place has been fun.
Right.
No, I told you I want to combine Greatshell and movies into something. And of course, if you're watching this episode, you'll know what name I finally settled on.
Yes.
But for now, it's still kind of up in the air.
Nice.
You know, originally I was thinking Cineshell, but that doesn't really work.
I don't know.
Also, because I think cinema is too antiquated of a name for like related to movies. I just wanted to be like the word movies and Greatshell somehow combined in a fun way.
Right.
Great movie shell. Anyway, but this is a continuation of talking about Marvel comics and the Spider-Verse and not the comics, but like the movies, Marvel Spider-Man pantheon.
Right.
And in the last episode, we got off on a lot of interesting tangents, but we were talking about, you know, how I thought the new movie had a lot of interesting characters in it. It didn't have too much like wasted character space.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up the guy that played Milchek, and he's a lot of fun in this movie because he always plays a good scary businessman.
Right.
You know, I would love to see him in more roles. In fact, if they did do like another remake of Jesus Christ Superstar, he'd be great as Judas.
Yeah, he would be.
But he's fabulous.
Yeah.
Because he's like got that weird, he's scary, and he's got that kind of like detached joy that also makes him seem like more evil and scary.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like all the times in that show Severance, he'll be like, come on, aren't you having fun?
Right.
And it's like, you know, meanwhile behind his eyes, you feel like he wants to murder you.
Yeah, he's likable and frightening at the same time. Like you would want to please him, but you wouldn't,
you'd be scared to cross him.
Yeah.
You want to please him, but at the end of the day, he's also a monster.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, which is why that scene where John Turturro yells at him is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's obviously great. But that's another thing that's funny about the Tom Holland Peter Parker and how he's different from the other Spider-Man, because like, do you remember if Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire had a relationship with like a member of the police in their movies? I think Andrew Garfield, he had that thing with like Kevin Bacon where like he was like Kevin Bacon's daughter was like dating. Kevin Bacon's daughter was like Gwen Stacy, I think.
Yeah.
In
maybe.
the Andrew Garfield movies.
Yeah.
And that all comes to kind of a head. But I'm not sure if he had like a working relationship with him. But like in the new movie, Tom Holland has like a working relationship with this woman who's like, I think the chief of police or something. I'm not sure who she is.
Well, weirdly enough, I also had an interesting vibe which I liked. I really liked this vibe. It almost seemed like she was like kind of romantically attracted to, because she only knew him from his voice, really, and she would see him in his suit.
I don't know about romantically attracted, but she had there was a mystique around him that I think she found like kind of like, ooh, it's mysterious and I like it.
But it also seemed romantic in the sense that, you know, her kids were often listening in on the calls and they were like, is that Spider-Man? And it's almost like, is that, you know, the guy that's going to be our stepdad? You know what I mean? Like there was a certain kind of feeling about that, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man desperately needed a relationship like that. You know
I
what
agree.
I mean?
I think if anything, we were supposed to feel like he's so lonely that this is like the only human contact he has.
Right.
So for him, it's like this kind of these phone calls. It's everything.
Yeah.
So it's like it has to be everything.
But I also felt that maybe unintentionally on his part, because he was so needy, he was also conveying a certain, you know, like a kind of romantic yearning to this woman that she was also lonely and picking up on.
Maybe.
I mean, and at least that was kind of what I got out of it. It made those scenes more interesting.
I know. I'm just worried we're going to insult someone by like suggesting that.
Why? Why would that be insulting?
I don't know. It's like she's like this you know, this kind of like older professional like black woman, and you know, like Tom Holland is like this little white guy who's like supposed to be like a kid. I don't know, something about it seems like I worry that somebody would think it's like insulting to suggest that she would be interested in him.
I maybe, I don't know. All I know is I thought it was kind of cute and hopeful.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like both of them maybe needed a relationship. They were both lonely and they were kind of latching onto each other in this kind of peculiar way. You know, this way that wouldn't have normally be possible.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
No, it could be. There were a lot of like fun little insinuations and funny moments that I did enjoy as far as that like little emotional, like if you're talking about that being like an insinuation. I also think like Florence Pugh in this movie, right? Playing Black Widow. Like there's that scene where Spider-Man goes to see her to like get information, and her office is like a bathhouse.
Yeah, it's like a Russian bath.
Yeah, it's like a banya in like in the middle of like Manhattan or something. And basically he has to like strip down and get in the banya with her to talk to her. And it's like the whole thing is played as kind of like a sexual tension joke.
Yeah, although again, I felt like this was again another opportunity the movie missed, because like
What, for Spider-Man to connect with her romantically?
Yeah.
Even though he was hung up on MJ?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But what I was going to talk about is not necessarily that scene, because I agree with you. There are some potentially unfulfilled moments and opportunities there. But I'm talking about the scene later when she sees him on a video call with MJ and his friend. What's his friend's name?
I don't know.
I feel like such a butt for not remembering
it. He's the Filipino kid.
Is he Filipino?
Yeah, because remember when in the last movie they go over to his apartment where his aunt is, and she's like this old Filipino lady.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, Ned, that's what his name is.
Right.
Yeah, so Florence Pugh sees him on a video call with them, and she's like, you know, I'm just happy to see the sad man has friends, you know. Like little moments like that are kind of charming and funny.
Yeah.
Also, I like how the resolution at the end, when Jean Grey was like, you know, because whenever there's a psychic villain, there's always got to be like some catastrophic, like, you know, the world is about to end scenario. And basically, there's a scene at the end where Jean Grey is like having a freak out after being tortured, where she like psycho freezes the whole like a few hundred blocks around the city, or 1,000 blocks or whatever. And in order to get through to her, Tom Holland invites her into his mind, where he basically has his dead Aunt May, like Marissa Tomei, talk to her and like, you know, like be there for her in a way that she was there for him.
Right.
You know, because which I'm happy Marissa Tomei is getting more screen time.
Yeah.
You know, despite the fact that her character was killed off.
Right.
But I like little moments like that. I thought that wasn't a bad way to resolve the whole thing.
No, I agree. I mean, I think the only quibble I had with that sequence is how easy it was for Marissa Tomei to kind of perform like the most kind of crude psychobabble on this girl,
and then just have it like
and
fix
have
everything.
her be fixed.
But keep in mind also, this girl is a very young teenager, and if anyone's going to be easily affected by like that kind of talk, probably going to be a teenager.
It would probably be her, right?
Yeah. But you're right; it could have been more earned. But I also like I've seen so many scenes now where like we're going into the character's inner psycho world to fix them. Right. That like having those scenes not be too drawn out is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, right. It doesn't have to be a long thing.
Yeah, I kind of liked the fact that scene was so short.
Yeah, because
like between like okay in it wasn't an Avengers movie, was it? It was like the Thunderbolts or something. They have oh God, now I can't remember his name. That superhero character that like the government makes, that like Julia Louis-Dreyfus is taking control. Vision or something? Not Vision. No, Vision's the red guy.
Right, but I know what you mean. It's that guy who
the Spectre or something.
Something like the Shadow. I don't know.
The guy that has the light and the dark side.
Yes,
and he has a lot of superpowers.
Right,
and then he has that moment too at the end where he like starts his shadow side starts taking over the city.
Right,
and then they go into his head to fix him. Right, or the show Legion, which is about Professor X's crazy kid, where there are a million moments where they go into people's heads to fix them.
Right.
Like I've seen so much of that. I don't want to see another. It's like, oh my God, this is my childhood bedroom, and my parents are arguing downstairs. Oh, no wonder that's where my trauma comes from. Like my God.
It's funny because the ultimate version and the most terrible version of that kind of scene is in the new movie Disclosure. The Spielberg movie that I just went and saw.
Yeah. Disclosure Day.
Yeah, Disclosure Day. Did you see that movie?
I didn't.
The climax of that movie
Can I just say for the record, I didn't see that movie because from the trailers and stuff, it just looked terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about it is that it has like the most drawn out and ridiculous of those. Let's go back to my childhood bedroom.
Someone's brain scene.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. No. It's an old thing at this point.
Yeah.
But considering that we had a psychic villain in the new Spider-Man, I felt like they were surprisingly, what's the word, like reserved about that. Like they didn't overdo it.
Right.
Like it was mostly about that character using her powers to be a scary nightmare.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about it the most. I feel like she really seemed genuinely very threatening to Spider-Man until, we found out the source of all of it.
Yeah, I will say that the movie kind of broke its own rule with this, because the villain throughout most of the movie seemed absolutely unbeatable because of her ability to just throw her consciousness into any passing person and then that person to pass it into the next.
Well, and also creating kind of a danger in that thing, because then when her consciousness leaves that person, you have to deal with the consequences of whatever happened to that person.
Right, absolutely. But what I liked was the fact that she was basically impregnable because she didn't have to be physically present.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then suddenly she's physically present. She's
and then having her show up.
Yeah, like why the hell does that happen?
And also he caught her face on like a camera in a car she was in.
Right.
Why would she let that happen?
Yeah.
Like if anything, it seems to me she should be wearing a mask all the time so she can't be identified.
Right.
But she almost immediately, when she's at her scariest, she gets almost immediately identified.
Yeah.
And it does sort of take the wind out of her sails.
Yeah.
I agree with her. I agree with you. It should have been more of like a buildup of things getting worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And then at the last minute, have it be like this gigantic fucking reveal.
Right.
That she's just this teenage girl with like this grudge.
Right.
Like, because it would have been a way bigger payoff if it had been like just increasingly more horrible and scary.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, how could this girl have done all these like horrifying things?
Right.
Also, it's a little too easy to have it be like, oh, she's just doing all this because she's trying to save her sister.
Uh-huh.
I thought that was a little too easy too, because she did a lot of terrible stuff.
Yeah.
So like, you know what I mean? It's like, how many people are you allowed to torture in the process of like fixing the thing that has hurt you?
Right.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there should have been more of like an ambiguity about like, like she did bad things, but it's because she's like a messed up kid, not because like she's a bad person.
Right. Well, also, I feel like they kind of missed a trick, because we were talking a lot in the last episode about how you're recycling all these kind of beloved characters, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that, in this one, it's like, okay, if the situation was what you were said, where it just got progressively worse and darker and more impossible, and everyone's just completely flummoxed, and then suddenly Professor X shows up.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
then,
that's kind of what I was honestly hoping for.
Yeah.
I was hoping that like things would get so bad that like nobody could control them.
Right.
And then at the end you needed like another psychic mutant to show up to calm things down.
Right. And it could be the young Professor X, could be played by McAvoy.
Yeah. McAvoy,
he could show up and he could say,
be like, Jean Grey, I know what you're going through.
Well, but he doesn't even have, right, but you know what I'm saying? He could point Spider-Man to where she is.
Yeah.
He could say, the person you're looking for is in this building.
No, I agree. I think they kind of missed an opportunity there.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that's because they're thinking they want to save that for like later.
Right.
And there's probably a limit of how many like name brand actors they want to pay for any one of these movies.
Sure.
So I think it was probably for them, it was like, how can we budget this so we can get as many people as we can while keeping it relatively cheap? Because like they already had to pay Mark Ruffalo for being Hulk in this movie.
Right.
They have to pay Tom Holland for being Spider-Man.
Right.
Jean Grey was like a pretty like not as well-known actress. She's still been in other stuff though. That actress.
I didn't really recognize
she
her.
was in Stranger Things and
okay.
some other stuff. I don't know everything she's been in, but I'm just saying like they probably didn't have to pay her as much as they did like Mark Ruffalo or
Right.
something. I don't know for sure. This is all just conjecture, obviously. But
Yeah.
like, so I'm thinking like they're trying to keep their overhead low and their profits high.
Right.
But I agree with you that like it would have been good to bring one of those guys in there at the end. Or
Right.
even if they couldn't afford McAvoy or Patrick Stewart, any X-Man.
Yeah.
Like any X-Man would have worked.
Right.
Just bring an X-Man in who has experience with this, who knows Professor X, and who can give some kind of insight into the situation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you could even have it explained away somehow. You could have like, I don't know, Gambit. show up, because obviously Channing Tatum loves playing that role, and he's going to be in the new Doomsday movie. You could have anybody show up and just be like, like, I know how you were feeling.
Right.
This is not a good Gambit impression, but like, I know this guy. He has the powers that you have, and this sounds like Mexican.
No, it works.
This man has the powers that you have. Ay, ay, ay. Where are the frijoles? Is there a Mexican X-Man? There probably
there
is.
There should be. If there's not.
I think there's an X-Man for every demographic.
Yeah. Speedy Gonzalez.
Oh my God. No, I'm sure there's like a respectable, like powerful, interesting Mexican X-Man.
Right.
Isn't America Chavez? I mean, that's Latin American community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she has the multiverse powers.
Yeah.
But is that an X-Men power? Is that a mutant power, or is that just like, I think it's a mutant power.
I don't know.
Anyway, but yeah, like you could just have another X-Men show up and just be like, I know this guy. Obviously the ultimate for that is always Wolverine, but we've done enough with Hugh Jackman.
Right. But it would have to be somebody she couldn't get into his head, right?
Maybe.
I mean,
like, if you really want to turn it on its head, have Magneto show up, because Magneto has the psycho blocking helmet.
Right.
So have the young Magneto show up. The guy, who's that actor?
Michael Fassbender.
Michael Fassbender. Yeah. Have Michael Fassbender show up with the Magneto helmet on.
Yeah.
And be like, are you related to Professor X?
Right.
Why am I doing like a Mel Brooks impression? Are you related to Professor X?
Right.
What are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So that was a missed opportunity. But aside from the missed opportunities and the fact that the movie was a little over long, it was still a pretty good movie.
It was. I enjoyed it.
But turning back a little more, back to the older Spider-Mans, like, I'm still trying to figure out where the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans stand in all of this, because I know a lot of people don't like those Spider-Mans as much as the other two, but but even saying that, I'm not sure. Like, even saying that, I don't know how big the community is that likes the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies.
I mean, it's probably substantial, just because every aspect of these movies has an audience.
I know, but from like my personal taste, they're my least favorite Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, you have the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and I think a lot of people felt like those movies were like maybe really over the top and goofy. And then maybe when they made the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, they were trying to make something that was like way more dark and dramatic, and sort of, like I said, repeat sort of the Dark Knight kind of formula.
Right.
And maybe they felt like that wasn't successful, and so they tried to sort of backtrack and do like a middle ground where like Tom Holland is more like a combination of serious and lighthearted Spider-Man.
Right.
I don't really know. I mean, it probably just has something to do with whoever was like writing and directing all of these things.
Right.
Because I don't remember who directed the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man
No, I
movies.
don't either. But I did remember feeling at the time that what they were trying to do was kind of to try to do what happened in the Star Trek movies when they did Wrath of Khan. They were kind of trying to change the whole vibe to a more cinematic tone, and I kind of thought that's
make
what
it way more overly serious.
Well, I don't know about overly serious, but I was just thinking more casual in a way. Less of an epic.
See, I don't agree. I think they were
so?
trying to give it more like dark gravitas. And I feel like, I mean, I haven't seen those movies in a long time. So for me to like really get in depth on them is probably not wise, but I mean,
what was interesting,
I just think they had the opportunity. They had some fun ideas. Like maybe it just came down to the fact that like visually the movies were limited and they were very like dark in a way that wasn't like, and matte in a way that wasn't like fun to watch. And the scripts were kind of dry. And,
right.
So I think even though we were dealing with interesting potential characters, like the Lizard and like Electro,
right.
It's still, there still wasn't enough like interesting stuff happening in the movie.
Well, here's my take on it based on me reading Spider-Man comics in the 70s. Okay, in the 70s, the character of the Lizard and the character of Electro were big recurring Spider-Man villains.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking Electro in particular was very interesting because he was a really frightening villain because he wielded electricity and could kill people just so easily. And he traveled by kind of skating on power lines.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, wow, this is a really frightening villain. What is Spider-Man going to do against this guy? And weirdly enough, Spider-Man was not the least bit intimidated by this guy. And when Spider-Man had to fight Electro, he would always defeat him pretty easily, even though Electro had been kind of set up as this sort of
this
terrifying, insurmountable thing, and Spider-Man would wipe him out pretty easily. And so I always thought it'd be interesting if you did that in a movie. They actually they did more of what you were saying. They because you were saying those movies got darker.
Yeah.
With the Andrew Garfield, and they were kind of that. I agree with you when it comes to Electro. They kind of made his character this kind of very tragic, dark, he's like this janitor who gets these superpowers essentially.
Yeah.
Now I don't remember how he got his powers in the original comic, but I remember he looked a lot different. He had this very extravagant yellow suit.
He was goofy looking.
Yeah, very
he had
goofy.
A mask with a bunch of lightning bolts coming out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe that what we're talking about ultimately here is just that the Andrew Garfield movies, there's not enough. They're not fun. You know what I mean? I think that's ultimately really what's missing is I understand that Spider-Man is supposed to be dark and have serious issues, and there's dark moments of being Spider-Man, but there's also a lot of moments in the Tom Holland movies and in the Tobey Maguire movies where you feel like the vibe is lighter, or like the characters are having more fun, or like the whole thing is it's got a larger mixture of emotions.
Right.
Whereas the Andrew Garfield movies, it feels like they're a little too heavy on despair, and there's not enough other elements there emotionally.
Yeah.
Because you have the villains are all incredibly tragic or insane. Gwen Stacy dies in a really tragic, awful way, where basically Spider-Man himself is at fault for killing her because he tries to catch her with his web and it breaks her back.
Right.
It's overly grim.
Yeah.
And there's not enough balancing it out.
Right. And also they kind of threw away some of the fun things from the comic. Like, for instance, when I think about the Lizard, the character of the Lizard in the comic, there's a funny recurring thing that happens in the comic stories that I recall. I don't remember a lot about these stories. It's been a long time. But one of the things I remember about the Lizard is that he was very disgusted by the humanness of Spider-Man and the softness. And when he's fighting Spider-Man, he would often say things like, "You disgust me. You're so pulpy and soft." And I remember there's one particular scene where he tries to bite him and he's like, "Blech, you're disgusting." And it just, there was, to me, that was kind of funny as a kid.
Yeah, it had fun elements.
Yeah.
No, I know. And that's the problem when you get too heavy with the tragic stuff, is that it loses balance.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about essentially is basically the thing about all movies, which is that even movies that are incredibly dark need to have a lot of emotional elements in them to be complete and to be entertaining in a way that's fulfilling.
Right.
Because even if you have there are horrible things that need to be discussed sometimes that don't have necessarily any humorous elements, but you still have to insert the human equation into those things to make them more palatable as entertainment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you want to get really dark, right? If you talk about doing a documentary about Nazis or something, or Nazi Germany, right? There's nothing funny about any of that.
Right.
But you still need to have elements in that piece of entertainment that are about because ultimately it's a teaching tool, but it's also an audio visual experience.
Right.
So you need to have moments where you show the human side of things.
Right.
Where you show these things were happening here, these were people living their lives here, these are the things that happen. It can be horrifyingly tragic, but you still need to get a feeling for the overall experience of being human in these situations.
Right, because even within the most tragic thing, there can be moments of absurdity and silliness, and things that are unintentionally funny,
Well, what a good example of that, if I'm talking about World War II, is the movie Life is Beautiful.
Yeah, right.
Because that's basically a movie about the Nazi occupation of Italy,
Right.
and like a father trying to cloak the experience of being in a camp in a humorous way for his son, or in like a playful way for his son, so that his son doesn't realize the grimness of their situation.
Right.
And I think, stuff like that, that's a good example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, right. Well, even Schindler's List has humorous parts in it,
Exactly. Well, I'm not saying it has to be humorous. It just has to be a mixture of emotions that make the
fullness
piece
of,
and the fullness of life in the piece accessible to the viewer.
Right, exactly. Because ultimately, I mean, what I like to think is that if you're watching a movie, fundamentally at its base, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
Which means it has to be entertaining. Now, that doesn't mean you have to lie about what's happening.
No, in some cases you have to tell the truth.
To tell the truth,
Yeah.
exactly. But the truth can often, if you're a good enough storyteller, can include the full range of feelings and emotions.
And in fact, it's better if it does, because usually it has a larger effect, a stronger effect on its audience if it does have all that.
Right.
Because like a movie like Schindler's List, which is a great example, like if that movie wasn't the masterpiece of storytelling that it is, do you think it would have the same powerful message about the situation that it portrays?
Right.
Like the reason that movie is so powerful and so affecting, and like, could even have, maybe could even change the minds of messed up people, is because it's such an incredibly well thought out piece.
Right.
And that's basically what I'm saying is the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies are the opposite of Schindler's List. No, what I'm saying is the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, I don't think have enough emotional complexity.
Right.
And that being said, the best thing about those movies is Andrew Garfield's performance.
Yeah.
Because he really worked hard to be a powerful character in those movies.
Well, and I actually really liked in the last Spider-Man movie, the one where the 3 different Spider-Men show up, is that the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man seems to understand he's the least of the Spider-Men.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's a bit of a
thing
joke
of it.
about that.
Yeah.
Which obviously makes him.
But see, that's what's so sad about the whole thing to me, is like, because I really like Andrew Garfield. I think he's a good actor.
Yeah.
And I think he's a complicated actor, and I think the fact that he kind of got the least of the Spider-Man performances wasn't really fair.
No,
because his movies should have been great Spider-Man movies.
Yeah,
but they were not the best of the 3 groupings of Spider-Man movies we're discussing.
Well, and to me that's unfortunate, just because the era of Spider-Man comics that those movies are reflecting, with like the Lizard and Electro, that was the era that I was reading Spider-Man when I was a kid. And I really, really like those stories, you know? And I feel like these movies wanted to go there, but for whatever reason, they didn't really capture it, you know?
But that's also why I'm hoping that, like, I'm glad that Andrew Garfield was in that newer Spider-Man movie, and I'm hoping he'll have more chances to portray the character.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he got kind of like, I don't want to say screwed, but like he basically like ended up in a situation where he's one of the people remember the character for him and not for the movies he was in.
Yeah.
Whereas like people remember the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, but not just because of Tobey Maguire.
Right.
Like, and same thing with the better Tom Holland ones. Although
I will say that I think the Spider-Man movie that has the 3 of them in it is a real gift to Andrew Garfield more than to the other 2.
Oh, I agree, because that movie, he really shined in that movie.
Well, and not only that, I think it's probably given fans a real reason to go back and look at his movies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's so likable in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because Tobey Maguire, he's sort of like, he's like kind of the older, more experienced, kind of war-torn Spider-Man.
Right.
And then you have, Tom Holland's the new sort of plucky, like, I don't know everything that's going on yet, Spider-Man.
Right.
And then Andrew Garfield is like sort of, there's just like, I'm just happy to be here.
Exactly.
It's like, I remember that was a thing that was a joke a long time ago that Louis C.K. made, the stand-up comedian Louis C.K., which I know is he's sort of controversial. I don't know, is he controversial anymore? I don't know. Anyway,
mean,
it doesn't matter. But he made a joke a long time ago where he basically said that, like, he was talking about dating as an older man, and he was saying, like, when you're an older man and you're going out into the dating world, it's like your competition is terrible because like younger men are like so nervous and so like on edge and like, you know, they're just like, you know, they're not desirable. They come off as like too intense.
Right.
And like meanwhile it's like, you know, I've been jerking off in the closet for the last 40 years. Like I'm just happy to be outside.
Right.
You know, and it's the same thing with Andrew Garfield in the new Spider-Man movie. It's like, you know, yeah, he it feels like he's just content to be there, but
Right.
that makes him really feel really like lovable and really like what's the word? Humble.
Yes.
And it makes him more charming.
Right.
And so in that movie, he really, you want to give him a hug. You know, you're just like, Andrew Garfield, stay in my life forever as Spider-Man.
Right.
You know, so I agree. You're right. That movie was a gift to everybody who's ever liked Spider-Man, though.
Oh, sure.
Because
Absolutely.
like,
it was definitely,
it was a celebration of the last, like, you know, 2 or 3 decades of Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and just to see, you know, people like, you know, the guy who plays Dr. Octopus again, or, you know, Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. Well, also, that's what's so funny is those villains, the actors that played those villains, like, don't age. Like, they look the same in those movies as they do in their original movies.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking, like, you know, even having, like, some of the newer characters, like having Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
You know, he's such a likable character, too.
Right.
So, like, having the best newer characters mixed with the best older characters is just like a real, and you know, and I feel like that's something we forget sometimes in art, and definitely the film industry has forgotten recently with filmmaking, is that we want every single piece to be like a gem of the celebration of the art form. You know, and like we want it to be fun and to be an expression of the joy of creating it. You know, and I think a lot of people forget that. A lot of people, they're just trying to make movies. They're just trying to churn something out. They're just trying to like figure out what the next big thing is, and they forget it's like we should be trying to make sure that each thing that we make is the best version of that thing that we can make at this time.
Right. Well, and to Marvel's credit, I feel like the best of the Marvel movies do achieve
They do.
that.
They absolutely do.
The trouble is there have been a few
There've been a lot.
duds.
There's been a lot of duds.
Yeah.
But like, I agree with you. But what do those best movies of Marvel have in common? A lot of the time, it's either because the idea was fresh. So when it was fresh, the people working on it were having a good time. Or it's because a really interesting or creative new director was introduced into the fray.
Right.
So like those movies are made whenever there's creative energy actually behind them to make them good.
Right.
You know, it's like, here's a new director who's never made a Marvel movie before but is hungry for it. And he's going to do a good one. Or like, you know, we're excited about the idea and it's new and we have a clear direction that we're moving in. And so that's why there's a good one.
Right.
You know, like the first big Avengers movie.
Right.
You know, or like Taika Waititi's Thor.
Yeah,
for
right.
his first Thor.
Yeah,
Which
for
was,
sure.
which one was that? Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok.
Is that movie's great.
Yeah.
Because Taika Waititi, I don't think had made a Marvel movie before that.
No, he hadn't.
And he's like he's fun, he's fresh, he likes to keep things like visual and light and potent. And
Right.
like that's why that movie was so much fun.
Yep.
You know? Or even like I don't know, did Sam Raimi make any Marvel movies before Spider-Man?
No.
Yeah, so those early Spider-Man movies
But like I said, he made Darkman, which was sort of an
did.
homage to superheroes.
Okay, but this was his first opportunity. Making those Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies was his first opportunity to make big ticket Marvel movies.
Right.
So it was probably exciting and fresh for him at the time and
Yeah.
made him produce better work.
Well, and the funny thing about the Marvel of that time was not a big company. And in fact, I think that they were very unsure about what to do, and they didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of resources. So they were, you know, to get somebody like Sam Raimi to direct a movie was kind of a little coup for them, because here's a guy who has a cult following, you know, and then at the same token, you know, when they got, you know, what's his name to play Iron Man?
Oh, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, they hired him because he was cheap,
Yeah.
even though he came with a lot of baggage because he was in the news and not for good reasons at that time. And so they were willing to go with him because they didn't have a lot of options.
So what we're saying here is the contributing factor is keeping things fresh.
Yeah.
You know, which is not to say that that's a guaranteed hit maker.
Right.
You can still have duds when you have like people you haven't used before. But if you find like people who are hungry, you know, who are interesting,
Yep.
you know, who have interesting elements as actors or as directors, who have a history of doing unusual things, maybe things that aren't anything like Marvel, you may end up with some weird, brilliant things.
Yeah, which means you have to gamble.
Yeah, you have to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
You got to keep it fresh. Yeah. And that's the biggest problem with all of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Is it's trying to recreate something that was created because it was fresh.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Thor: Love and Thunder too. Is like, I don't know if I love Taika Waititi, so I don't want to talk down about him. But I'm saying, like, I don't know if he necessarily wanted to make more than one Thor movie.
Right, or had more than one in him, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like, I think they were excited that Thor movie was so successful, and so they gave him the keys to another Thor movie.
Right.
And I'm not saying Love and Thunder is bad. It's not. But it's not as good as Ragnarok.
Right.
But that's not even, obviously, nowhere near the worst example of their bad movies.
No. Because at least that's not boring.
Yeah. There are other movies they've made that have been way more problematic.
Yeah.
Not to mention their whole history of, like, trying to create movies with mainline female characters that turn out to be really, like, boring characters. Mm-hmm. Like Captain Marvel and stuff like that.
Right.
But, like, but then you get something like She-Hulk,
right,
which I don't know. There's a lot of animosity toward that that I don't understand, because I actually think because that lead actress was so interesting and unusual, she really, like, brought it to She-Hulk, and She-Hulk was great.
Yeah, I think She-Hulk is one of the underrated, Marvel successes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because, like, I would have loved to see more of that. They should have done a She-Hulk movie.
But once again, that's the keeping it fresh thing.
Yeah,
it's like, find an actress who's really interesting and who can, like, really carry a character, and who's not, like, just somebody you've used a million times,
right? And
put them in a situation to play this character that they might be perfect for.
Yep.
Like, I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And that's the only problem. Like, we always talk, there's so much talk in social media and in our world over, like, who should play who. Like, can we do female characters? Can we do, black characters, white characters? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And it's like, are these characters right for this or that? Or that? It's like, you just need someone good and someone fresh.
Right. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of the problem with mainstream movies now is that there's a culture war. It's the same culture war that's been going on, since forever, essentially, but worse in the past 20 years, is, this idea that, people's, identities somehow matter, when they're making art. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. What matters is what you can bring to the table.
Yeah. It also matters what your vision is.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to create a movie that's like a political piece, or if you want to create a movie that, like, showcases the strengths of a particular section of society, or if you want to, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, your vision is not necessarily tied to identity.
Right.
And, like, it's the same thing with, like, well, I've always said this all the time, is like, there are roles where the kind of person who's playing a role matters. But for the most part, especially with stuff like comic books, it doesn't matter.
No, and
just get people who are right for the role. It doesn't matter, like, who they are, unless that's important to their character.
Right.
Like, obviously, you don't want, like, Black Panther to be portrayed by, like, an Irish guy.
Right, because it doesn't make any sense.
Like a white Irish guy.
Right.
But like if you're talking about, like, a character with none of that matters, anybody can play them as long as they're right for the character.
Yeah.
And right for the character just means somebody who's fresh, who's a good actor, who seems like they fit into that world.
Right. Well, and if you think about what comic books are, I mean, what is a comic book? It's essentially a storyboard. And if you're looking at it as a storyboard, you can plug anybody into any of those positions.
Yeah.
And the more, the deeper person and the funnier and the more compelling you can put a person in there, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. And let me just clarify that by this, I do not mean that every single time something is made, the cast should be like this ridiculously comically diverse cast.
No.
Like, because Disney Plus has been doing this thing where, like, to appeal to, I mean, I hate this term, but people use it all the time, wokeness. Like, there's a lot of, like, let's just throw as diverse a cast in this as we can so that everybody feels represented. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying I do agree that you want to make sure that there is representation in media for all people. But you also want to make sure that the characters people are playing are, like, the actors cast in those roles are right for those characters.
Right.
And that the characters are compelling. If you create a piece with, like, a hugely diverse cast and every role feels, like, really well cast and the piece is really beautiful and interesting and powerful, then that's fine. It's fine. But if you just throw a bunch of people in there just for demographic value and you don't make sure the piece is good and you just, like, kind of are just like, we just want to put something together everybody will watch, it might turn out like shit.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. I mean, but that comes down to the person writing it and creating it, in terms of whatever their vision is.
Yeah. And obviously you don't want to do anything that doesn't make any sense or is offensive or is ridiculous in some really obvious way.
Right.
Like I said, like casting Black Panther as like a white Irish policeman.
Right. But for instance, I mean, I couldn't bring myself to watch the new Daredevil season, Born Again.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love the graphic novel that it's based on.
But that's because they just used the title. Yeah, it's not the same story.
Yeah, they threw out the story. And I felt like that was a terrible mistake. And I would have seen that story. You could have changed around, the sexes of the characters. You could have changed the races of the characters. But if the story was obeyed, if the story was followed, that would have been a really good series.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, I really like the guy they have playing Daredevil. I mean, that guy is perfect for that role.
Yeah.
But for them to just throw it out, I don't know why you would do that.
Well, I just think, in terms of making TV shows and movies out of comics, a lot of times there's this inclination to basically just like reference the comics without necessarily like paying real homage to them. So I think when we're talking about like, creating a show like Daredevil, it's more of like a mishmash of stuff that has happened to Daredevil and less of like, here's this specific storyline, we're going to do a visual version of it.
Right.
But I agree with you that actually it might be in some scenarios more interesting to literally just do a movie version of some pre-existing comic story.
Right.
Because there's a lot of really great comic stories out there. This goes back to something I think about all the time, which is that Stanley Kubrick always used like music that already existed for his scores in his movies. He did that because he always said, what was the point in scoring new music if there's this giant body of great music out there that already exists that you can pull from?
Right.
There's no need to reinvent the wheel when you have the wheel. So it's like, and I think about that in terms of this all the time. It's like people are churning out all these universes, like but the comic book universe is unique from something like Star Wars in that there's already like decades and decades of stories, of great stories out there that you can pull from.
Right.
And you don't need to write a new comic book story. It already exists.
Yeah.
So just find a really great story and make that.
Right.
And I feel like too often the execs don't understand that.
Yeah.
They just go off and they're like, well, we can just make sort of a general Daredevil thing, or we can just make sort of a general this or that thing. And it's like, no, just find a great story that already exists and use that. If you're going to be lazy anyway, if you're not going to try to write a good movie, just find a story that's already good and make that.
Well, and it almost seems to me that the reason that's not happening is that no executive in the Marvel world can be bothered to go back and go through all the old comics.
And actually like look at any of the stories.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going to spend my afternoons reading those comics from 1973.
I'm just going to like pull a script out of my butt or something.
Yeah, exactly, because that's lazier and easier. I can hire somebody to write something.
But what's stupid about that is they could hire somebody to comb through the comics too.
Yeah, right.
Here, let me put it this way. With all the tools, the digital tools we have at our disposal right now, I promise you that if I went upstairs right now and spent an hour searching on my computer, I could find a comic book story to make into a movie that is better than most of the Marvel Universe's movies that have already been made.
Yeah, no, I know that
I don't think it would take that long.
No, absolutely.
I mean, and even if you already have one on the top of your head with that Born Again story.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That is an incredible graphic novel story that could be easily made into a great movie, and that's just being left on the wayside.
Yeah, it's like they're throwing it away so that they can make some crap that I don't understand why you would want to bother with.
Yeah.
It doesn't
But
make
even
any
if there
sense.
are people that I just think that we're working too hard to make stuff that's already good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be. And even with Star Wars, like, you still need to pull from if you're going to try to churn stuff out, you need to pull from pre-existing media to make stuff good. Why was the early Mandalorian show so good? It was good because it was based on an idea that already existed.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, even if you're creating stories out of something that doesn't have as elaborate of an extended universe, or like has an extended universe that has only existed since the movies have, you can still pull from other relevant media.
Yeah. Well, that was the big problem with this Mandalorian and Grogu thing that we went and saw. I was like, you just felt like there was no story there at all.
Yeah.
It just didn't have anything.
Yeah, it just felt like they were trying to create like fan service to the characters without it actually like having a plot.
Right.
Yeah. But that's what made the early Mandalorian so good. The plot.
Yeah.
You know, there's this developing relationship between these characters, their environments, their different backgrounds, you know, and then all that stuff with throwing in like the Star Wars universe history stuff in there.
Right.
You know, having Luke Skywalker randomly show up. Like, that's what made it good.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm just saying, like, in art, in the art world in general, and that's kind of what I'm trying to piece my own art off of now, is like there's this feeling like you have to like be some kind of a genius who magically creates amazing auteur pieces out of nothing. And that's not true, because it's always about finding stuff that's already good and either making it better or just utilizing what's there. I mean, you know, why are so many of Quentin Tarantino's movies great? It's not because Quentin Tarantino pulled them out of his butt. Right. You know, he took stuff that already was interesting to him, that was already like part of the zeitgeist, and he pieced it together in a cool, fun, visual way that felt brilliant.
Right, and did the same thing with the music that he put on it.
Exactly.
You know, it chose all these interesting pieces of music, you know,
Exactly.
and repurposed them.
So, I mean, at this point, especially in history, art is basically just collaging. You just have to find the good stuff and put it together in a way that people want to see.
Right.
You know?
And hopefully in a way that's kind of, that people haven't seen before, but it's sort of
or take the stuff that wasn't done well but people are aware of and make it better.
Yes.
Like, you know, that's a big part of it too. Finding stuff that's not necessarily respected as being great and turning it into something that's great.
Yeah.
You know, like, but I'm just saying, I think a lot of times, and I say this to anybody who's like a hopeful creator out there, I think a lot of people think that if you're a creator, you have to be some kind of brilliant genius who's like, and you do have to have certain skills and certain like abilities to think about things a certain way, but you are not making something out of nothing.
Right.
You're not working in a void. You know, when you're creating your art, you have to think about the entire history of human culture and what in that is important to you.
Right.
You know? So I guess at the end of the day, art is more about like, creating art is more about absorbing art and being a part of art history and like learning about art and culture than it is about just being a creator.
Right. Well, and it doesn't.
Well, it's like you said with being a writer, like, you know, you have to read a lot to be a writer.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and certainly one would hope that was the case, you know, because you don't want people who've never had a thought coming up with something they think is original.
Exactly.
And it turns out it's just a boring retread of some kind. I mean, I always remember I started a newspaper when I was younger and I was living in Oregon. And I basically sent out a call for contributors to this newspaper, and I wanted anything, you know, articles, fiction, whatever.
Yeah.
I only got one reply, and it was this guy who sent me this short story that was basically a complete ripoff of that movie about the little creatures that if you put water on them.
Gremlins?
Gremlins. It was like a total ripoff of Gremlins. And it was like, it didn't even seem like the guy had seen Gremlins, but it was like Gremlins essentially. So I had to give the guy the bad news that I wasn't going to publish the story because it wasn't well written.
Yeah.
And it was Gremlins. And I just, but that's the problem, is that you've got a lot of people out there who don't read and don't really follow anything, and you know, they have this desire to do something creative that they're not really capable of doing.
Well, and that's a challenge too. Like you have to know enough about what's already happened if you're trying to make something that's fresh at all, or that feels fresh at least. You kind of have to know what's already out there.
Right.
Now, obviously, like, when I was growing up and in your life, we've watched a ridiculous amount of movies.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, that's a big part of it. We read a lot, watch a lot of movies. I mean, I know that reading has become less popular in recent history. So if you're not going to read, I mean, at least try to consume good media.
Yeah, exactly. You should be a person who loves media. And media, I mean, I know that for me personally, when I was a little kid, I grew up very poor. And the things that kept me sane were books, because you could read books for nothing. I mean, you could go to the library.
Yeah.
And when I could go to the movies, I loved movies, you know. And so that's...
So don't be like the current Hollywood system.
That's right.
Try to find things that are interesting, and if you're going to be creative, try to make sure you know a lot about what's out there, and what's interesting. Just try to be interesting and emotionally complex.
Yeah.
And the new Spider-Man movie, I feel like, has some elements of that.
Yeah, it definitely has some pops.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely like the actor who plays the
Kit Fisto?
Yes, Kit Fisto. No, the guy who plays Spider-Man's assassin friend.
Oh, Spider-Man's assassin friend.
The guy who's living in the giant warehouse.
Oh,
the tug
yeah.
bug.
Yeah. Oh my God, now I can't remember his name. Yeah, the Punisher.
The Punisher.
Yeah, the Punisher.
Yeah. Now I enjoy.
Well, and he's from the TV shows too.
Yeah, and he's from the TV shows, and I especially like the actor who plays him.
Yeah. No, he's great.
Yeah.
But you actually just reminded me when you were talking about assassins. So, like, that superpowered ninja group that's in the movie, the Hand.
Yeah.
So, in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's ninja organization is called the Foot.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the Foot.
That's funny.
And then we have this one in the Marvel movie called the Hand.
Wow.
Which, by the way, I don't know anything about the Hand. I assume there's something from Marvel Comics, but I just thought that was kind of funny. I got the Foot in the Hand.
Right, the Foot in the Hand.
Which I guess makes sense for ninja organizations, because they're using their hands and feet a lot.
Sure.
Yeah. I still enjoyed that in the movie, although I'm a little tired of ninja groups.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of to this day, ninjas are still very popular in pop culture.
Right.
Which I think is very interesting. I'm surprised that ninjas have survived so long.
Yeah.
As part of like the popular culture.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's probably why that early D'Antwoord song Ninja got so popular.
Probably.
And also the fact that guy's like stage name is Ninja.
Right.
I'm a ninja. Yo, my life is like a video game. I maintain when I'm in the zone. I probably shouldn't talk about them too much. I think there was some sort of controversy about them being like horribly racist or something.
No.
Well, I mean, they're South African rappers.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
I don't know.
So
I don't want to go into it too much because I don't really remember.
Right.
But anyway, regardless, ninjas have been very popular.
Yeah, and the way I thought about that whole thing in the new Spider-Man movie was just that was the one of the aspects of the movie that I thought went a little bit into the direction of just needless clutter. You know what I mean? Like,
just too much extra fighting stuff.
Yeah, there was no real need to have like a ninja squad in the movie.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me of the end of Life of Brian.
Yeah,
when the ninjas show up at the crucifix.
No, I know. I do really like, though, there's one shot in that scene where he's fighting the ninjas where one ninja jumps down with a katana and he like blocks the katana with some web that he produces between his hands when he's like in like crazy spider mode with his black eyes. That shot I thought was really, really compelling. But but I agree with you. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, of all the Marvel universe, all the Spider-Man universes, the second Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and the multiverse Tom Holland, Doctor Strange, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies are my two favorite Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, those are good ones.
but there's stuff to be gleaned from all of this,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all a question. I actually feel like it's great that I'm having a chance to watch through all of this stuff, because now when I have kids, I can comb through what I consider as the best of all of this media and just show them like a straight track through of only the best stuff,
Right.
which is what I've been doing with Star Trek with my wife. I've just been only showing her the stuff that I think is really good,
Yeah.
and kind of leaving out like the unnecessary movies.
Yeah.
Because like we did watch through the entire original series, and now we're watching through the entire Next Generation, but I also skipped like Star Trek 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to skip most of the Next Generation movies, except for Generations and First Contact.
Yeah, those are watchable.
Yeah.
I enjoyed those.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's great that with all of this media that's out there, you can kind of just skim through for the best stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I often tend to wonder, what history will remember of all of these things.
What will history remember of Marvel?
Exactly.
How did Wesley get in here? Is Gwen home?
Yeah, I think Gwen must be home. Hi, Gwen.
Oh, she is home. Okay.
Yeah.
That scared me. Yeah, what do we remember of the Marvel universe?
Hey.
My wife is here,
Yay.
and now she's in the podcast.
You guys need the light for your front, for your faces.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm counting on the window light. What they don't know is that we're in a basement.
That's true.
We're on a beach, Gwen. We're not in a basement.
That's right.
Okay.
They think we're on a beach.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll worry about a better fill light situation later. For now, it is what it is.
That's
I
right.
put Wesley out. Sorry for interrupting you guys.
No, you're not.
But anyway, yeah, I guess what are your final thoughts on all the Spider-Mans and I guess let's just limit it to what are your thoughts on all the Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse. We didn't even talk about the Miles Morales Into the Spider-Verse stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Because actually
We forgot about that.
the first Spider-Verse movie of those Spider-Verse movies, I actually think is also one of the best Spider-Man
I agree.
movies.
It's a very good movie. Although my main problem with those, as I think I've told you, is I do not like the animation style because I can see the frame rate.
The frame rate is funky,
It
but most
bothers
people
me.
can't see that.
Yeah.
So like I think that's just an us thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, I rephrase what I said then. The second Tobey Maguire movie, the multiverse movie, and the first Miles Morales movie are my favorite Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, and those are all really good for what they are. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's your concluding thoughts on all the Spider-Man verse?
Well, it's funny because Spider-Man, I mean, I didn't read a ton of Marvel comics when I was a kid. Mainly I read Man-Thing comics, which I really like the character of Man-Thing.
Oh yeah, a lot of people do.
But I did go through phases of reading Spider-Man, usually depending on what artist was writing and drawing them. Because
yeah. Watch Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, Werewolf by Night is pretty good. But the Spider-Man comics, the ones that I like the most are the ones I'm always wanting to see made as movies. And I have to say that I don't think that any of the movies have really captured the best of the comics yet. I mean, I do think that
so the best is yet to come.
The best, hopefully, is yet to come. I mean, I like the first two Tobey Maguire ones, and I like that one that you're talking about with the last one, the three Spider-Men coming together. But none of them really capture to me the vibe that I remember.
Well, I think that's sort of a hopeful thought.
Yeah.
That maybe we could still see a new wave of people making great comic book movies. I don't know if I have that much hope.
Yeah, I will say, let me just say this. The closest anyone I think has come to capturing the feeling of the comic Spider-Man that I remember, it happened in this newest movie. And it was the scenes when Spider-Man is swinging from his web through the city streets. I think they've really captured the visceral thrill of web swinging.
Yeah.
And the comics also did a good job of capturing that.
Well, the video games have gotten better at that too.
Probably.
At creating more of like a realistic, like thrill park type feeling for that.
Right. And it's kind of a wonderful thing.
Okay, so your final thoughts are hope for the future.
Yeah.
My final thoughts are Spider-Man is dead. No. My final thoughts, I guess, are just, I always am hoping to be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm always hoping for like a good piece of art or a surprising piece of art or a movie to come out that I'm going to walk into unexpecting and be like really just have that really fulfilled feeling, you know? Watching a movie is like eating a meal, you know? If you come out, like if you have a really great meal, you come out feeling really good, really satisfied, really just like it fills a hole in your soul.
Yeah.
And I think
it's a spiritual thing as well as a physical thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, we're desperate for that in movies now.
Yeah.
You know, like that's why movies like Obsession did so well, because it's like these are movies that are trying to have an effect in a way that movies haven't had for a long time.
Right.
And I applaud that, and I hope we can keep going in directions where we can make movies that like really have an effect on people and are really powerful and are really beautiful or scary or anything, you know, to inspire feelings. Because if there's one thing I hate, it's walking into a movie and coming out feeling either depressed or numb. And I just hope we can stray away from that.
Amen. I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to enjoy the sun out here for a few more hours. And
the cries of the gulls.
And we'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Spider-Man, we love you all. But I have just one question that eats away at me every day.